The salvage ship Horizon's Edge moved slowly through the dark space of the void sector. Captain Yuki sat in her command chair, watching the screens that showed floating pieces of old spaceships and broken metal. Her crew had been searching this area for 3 days, looking for anything valuable they could sell. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings," said Lieutenant Hiro from his station. His fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "There's something big out there, but it's not showing up clearly on our sensors." Yuki stood up and walked to his station. "What kind of readings? It looks like a ship, but the design is different. Very old, maybe centuries old." Hiro frowned. At his screen, metal composition doesn't match anything in our database. "Put it on the main screen," Yuki ordered. The large display showed a dark object floating in space. It was long and sleek, with curves that looked almost artistic. The hull was damaged in many places, with holes that let starlight shine through. But even broken, it had a beauty that modern ships lacked. Chief Engineer Hannah whistled softly. "I've never seen anything like it. The proportions are all wrong for any known species." Dr. Minho, the ship's xenobiologist, leaned forward in his seat. "Captain, if I may suggest, this could be an important discovery. We should investigate carefully." Yuki nodded. "Hannah, take a team and board that ship. Be careful. We don't know what's over there." 20 minutes later, Hannah floated through the airlock into the mysterious vessel. Her suit lights cut through the darkness as she moved down a corridor. The walls were covered with symbols she had never seen before. They looked almost like writing, but more flowing and organic than any language she knew. "The atmosphere is completely gone," she reported through her radio, but the structure seemed stable, moving deeper into the ship. As she explored, Hannah found rooms filled with strange equipment. Some machines were clearly destroyed, but others looked like they might still work. The technology was unlike anything she had seen. It seemed more advanced than what her own people used, but also older. "Captain, you need to hear this, Hannah's." The voice came through the com with excitement. "I'm reading thermal activity in what looks like a medical bay. There's a cryopod here, and it's still functioning." On the bridge of Horizon's Edge, everyone became very quiet. Dr. Minho spoke first. "That's impossible. No known species has cryotechnology that could work for more than 50 years without maintenance." "How old did you say this ship was?" asked Yuki. "The metal decay suggests at least 300 years, Hiro replied. "Maybe more." Hannah's voice crackled through the radio again. "The pod is definitely active. I can see life signs on the display. Someone is alive in there." "Captain," Yuki made her decision quickly. "Bring the pod back to our ship. Use the cargo bay." In Hannah. Be very careful." 2 hours later, the cryopod sat in the medical bay of Horizon's Edge. It was beautiful and strange, made of a white material that seemed to glow with its own light. Through the clear top, they could see a man floating in blue liquid. He looked young, maybe 30 years old, with black hair and peaceful features. Dr. Minho ran every test he could think of. "Captain, these readings are incredible. His genetic structure is completely unique. I've never seen DNA like this." "What species is he?" Yuki asked. Dr. Minho hesitated. "According to the genetic markers, he's human." The bridge became silent. Everyone knew the stories about humans. They were taught in every school across the galaxy. Humans had been a violent, primitive species that lived on a planet called Earth. They had destroyed themselves in nuclear wars 300 years ago. Their story was used to teach children about the dangers of aggression and war. "That can't be right," said Lieutenant Hiro. "Humans were barely capable of space travel. They lived in caves and fought with simple weapons." Dr. Minho checked his readings again. "I'm certain. But his cellular structure is far more advanced than anything in our textbooks. His brain shows development patterns that shouldn't be possible, and his body seems to be resistant to aging." The cryopod began to make soft beeping sounds.
A light
On its surface started flashing. "It's beginning a wake-up sequence," Dr. Minho said, with excitement and fear in his voice. "He's going to wake up." Captain Yuki stepped closer to the pod. "How is this possible? Humans were supposed to be primitive. The Council's history books say they never developed advanced technology." The blue liquid in the pod began to drain away. The man's eyes moved under his closed eyelids. His fingers twitched slightly. Dr. Minho watched his instruments carefully. His vital signs are stabilizing. Brain activity is increasing. Captain, in a few minutes, we're going to be talking to someone who lived 300 years ago. Someone who might know the real truth about what happened to humanity. The man in the pod took his first breath in 3 centuries. His eyes opened slowly, and he looked up at the faces staring down at him. He tried to speak, but only made a soft sound. "Easy," Dr. Minho said gently. "You're safe. Can you understand me?" The man nodded weakly. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough from the long sleep. "My name is June. Where? ... What? Where am I? What happened to Earth?" Captain Yuki felt a chill run down her spine. This man was about to learn that everything he had known was gone. Perhaps they were about to learn that everything they had been taught was a lie. The interrogation room was cold and white, with bright lights that made everything look harsh. Council historian Nari sat at a metal table across from the man who claimed to be the last human alive. She had been questioning June for 3 weeks now, and his answers kept making her more confused. "Let's go over this again," Nari said, touching her recording device to make sure it was working. "Tell me about the great wars that destroyed your people." June looked tired. He had been asked the same questions many times. "I keep telling you, there were no wars. We stopped fighting long before I was born. My grandfather used to tell stories about the old days when humans fought each other, but that ended 200 years before my time." Security Chief Tay, who stood by the door with his arms crossed, made a sound of disbelief. "Every record we have says humans were violent. You fought constantly. You built weapons that could destroy whole planets." "We built those weapons once," June admitted, "but we also built the wisdom not to use them. We learned that fighting only brought pain." Nari looked at her data pad, where she had written down everything June had told her over the past weeks. His stories were so different from what she had learned in school. "You say your people lived in peace, but how? Every species has conflicts." June leaned back in his chair. "We learned to talk instead of fight. When people disagreed, we found ways to solve problems together. We shared resources instead of fighting over them. It wasn't easy at first, but we made it work." "Describe your cities," Tay said, challenging him. "Our records show humans lived in small, dirty settlements." "Our cities were beautiful," June said with a sad smile. "Some floated in the sky, held up by gravity manipulation fields. Others were built into mountainsides, with gardens growing on every level. The capital city had towers made of crystal that sang in the wind." Nari's pen stopped moving. She had read something about crystal structures in an old report, but it had been marked classified. "What about your technology? We could heal almost any injury or disease. People lived for hundreds of years if they wanted to. We had machines that could create anything we needed from basic elements. Our artists painted with pure light, creating pictures that moved and changed." Tay shook his head. "Impossible. Humans barely understood basic science. We understood the universe better than you might think," June replied quietly. "We had mapped the quantum structure of reality. We were working on communication methods that could send messages instantly across the galaxy." This made Nari look up sharply. Instant communication across the galaxy was something the Council's best scientists said was impossible. Only the Valdorians claimed to have achieved it, and they guarded that technology carefully. "You're lying," Tay said angrily. "Or you're confused from the long sleep." June looked at him with patient eyes. "I'm telling you the truth. I know it's different from what you've been taught, but that doesn't make it false." After the interrogation session ended, Nari walked to her office with her mind full of questions. She had studied human history for 20 years. Every book, every report, every official document said the same thing. Humans were primitive and violent. They had destroyed themselves in nuclear wars because they couldn't control their aggressive nature. But June's stories were so detailed, so consistent. He described technologies and achievements that seemed impossible, yet he spoke about them as if they were normal parts of his life. That evening, Nari sat at her computer in her small apartment. She told herself she was just being thorough, checking the official records one more time. But instead, she found herself accessing databases she had never looked at before. Most files were marked with security levels far above her clearance, but some older documents had been archived with lower security ratings. She began reading reports. From archaeological expeditions to the ruins of Earth, one report mentioned finding crystal formations that didn't match any known natural process. Another described metal alloys that couldn't be created with known technology. A third report talked about discovering ruins of structures that seemed to float without any visible support. All of these reports had been filed away, forgotten. The official conclusion was always the same. These findings didn't fit the accepted history of human civilization, so they must be errors or misunderstandings. Nari felt a cold feeling in her stomach. What if the findings weren't errors? What if June was telling the truth? She accessed more files, going deeper into the archives. She found fragments of human art that showed incredible beauty and complexity. She found pieces of technology that the research teams couldn't understand. She found evidence of cities much larger and more advanced than anything in the official histories. As she read through the night, Nari began to realize something terrible. Either June was the most creative liar in the galaxy, or everything she had been taught about humans was wrong. The next morning, she returned to the interrogation room with new questions. But as she looked at June sitting calmly at the metal table, she wondered if she was ready to hear the answers. What she didn't know was that her late-night research had triggered automatic monitoring systems in a secure facility across the city. Alerts were flashing on screens. Someone was asking questions about classified human artifacts. Someone was digging too deep into the past. And some secrets the Watchers knew were too dangerous to let survive. Dr. Minho unlocked the door to Lab 7's abandoned wing, looking around carefully to make sure no one was watching. The hallway was empty and quiet. He slipped inside and locked the door behind him. This part of the research station had been closed for years, which made it perfect for work that needed to stay secret. Inside the lab, Engineer Hannah was already working at a table covered with strange objects. She had taken these items from June's ship when they first found him. Officially, she had reported finding nothing valuable. Unofficially, she had hidden the most interesting pieces in her personal storage. "Did anyone see you come in?" Hannah asked, without looking up from a device that glowed with soft blue light. "No, the corridor was empty," Minho replied. He walked over to where research assistant Bomi was studying something under a powerful microscope. "What have you found?" Bomi looked, excited but also worried. "Doctor, you need to see this. I've been analyzing the computer chips from June's ship." She activated a holographic projector. A three-dimensional image appeared in the air above the table. The hologram showed the inside structure of a small computer processor. It was incredibly complex, with layers of circuits that seemed to flow like water rather than following straight lines. "This design is amazing," Bomi continued. "The processing power is at least 100 times greater than anything we use today. But here's the strange part." She brought up another hologram, next to the first one. "This is a Valdorian quantum processor, the most advanced technology in the galaxy." Minho stared at the two images. They looked almost identical. "The designs are the same, not just similar," Bomi said quietly. "Identical. The architecture, the quantum pathways, even the smallest details. But according to our dating analysis, the human processor is 500 years older than the Valdorian one." Hannah stopped working and looked up. "That's impossible. The Valdorians invented quantum processing. They've had that technology for 200 years. Humans were supposed to be primitive 300 years ago. That's what we've been taught," Minho said slowly. "But what if we were taught wrong?" Over the past 2 weeks, their secret research had revealed more and more disturbing facts. Every piece of technology from June's ship was far more advanced than anything currently available. Materials that were stronger and lighter than modern, alloys, energy sources that produced more power than their best reactors, medical devices that could heal injuries in minutes. "We need to test June again," Minho decided. "We're not in the official labs. Bring him here tonight." That evening, June sat in Lab 7 while the team ran tests on him. His blood samples showed incredible properties. When they exposed his blood to deadly diseases, The viruses died almost immediately. His brain scans revealed neural pathways that shouldn't exist in any known species. "Solve this," Minho said, showing June a mathematical problem that had puzzled the Council's best scientist for 30 years. June looked at the equations for less than a minute. Then he began writing. His solution covered 3 pages and used mathematical concepts that were completely new to the research team. "How did you do that?" asked Bomi in amazement. "Every human child learns quantum mathematics," June replied simply. "It's basic education, like learning to read." Dr. Minho felt frustrated. For weeks, he had been getting answers that didn't make sense. "June, you're not telling us everything. I know you're hiding something important." June's face became serious and sad. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. "You want to know the truth? The real truth?" "Yes," Minho said firmly. "My ship wasn't on an exploration mission when you found it," June said slowly. "It was running away. We were fleeing from something terrible." "Fleeing from what?" Hannah asked. "From the ones who killed us all," June replied. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Humans didn't destroy themselves in wars. We were murdered. All 30 billion of us." The lab became completely silent. Minho felt his heart beating faster. Who killed your people?" June looked up at them with eyes full of old pain. "The same ones who are probably watching you right now. The same ones who rewrote our history and told the galaxy we were violent primitives." Across the city in a secure government building, Counselor Kang was reading reports on his private computer. His face was pale as he scrolled through surveillance data. "Dr. Minho has been accessing restricted databases," his assistant reported. "The research team has been meeting in unauthorized locations, and the human has been talking about subjects that are classified at the highest levels." Counselor Kong pressed a button on his desk. A holographic image appeared, showing the face of a Valdorian commander. The alien's crystal-like features were cold and threatening. "The situation is becoming dangerous," the Valdorian said, in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. "These humans and their allies are discovering things they should not know." Do you want me to do?" Kong asked nervously. "End the investigation. Remove the researchers. And eliminate the human before he can share more of his memories." "But sir, these are respected scientists." "I can't just Counselor Kang," the Valdorian interrupted. "We have protected this secret for 300 years. We will not allow it to be exposed now. You have 24 hours to solve this problem. If you cannot, we will solve it ourselves." The hologram disappeared, leaving Kong alone in his office, staring at surveillance photos of people who had no idea how much danger they were in. Nari crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel beneath Council Station Omega, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. The metal walls were covered with dust and rust. She had been crawling for 20 minutes, following a map that Bomi had found in the old station blueprints. "Are you sure this leads to the archives?" whispered Dr. Minho, who was crawling behind her. "It has to," Nari replied, trying to keep her voice quiet. "All the really old files are stored in the basement levels, files that are too secret for the main computer systems." Behind Minho, June moved silently through the tunnel. He had insisted on coming with them, even though it was dangerous. "I need to see the truth with my own eyes," he had said. The tunnel ended at a metal grate. Through the bars, they could see a large room filled with rows of storage units. Ancient computers hummed quietly in the darkness, their lights blinking like sleeping eyes. Hannah used her engineering tools to remove the grate without making noise. One by one, they climbed into the hidden archive room. The air smelled old and dusty, like a place that had been forgotten for decades. "These storage units are incredible," Bomi whispered, looking at the old computers. "They're from the early days of the Galactic Council. It's 300 years old, at least." Nari found a working terminal and connected her portable computer. "I'm searching for files about human history, anything marked with the highest security levels." For several minutes, she typed commands and searched through directories. Most files were locked behind security codes she couldn't break. But then she found something interesting. "Here," she said softly. Folder marked Valdorian Prime Authority, Historical Management. It has thousands of files. She opened the first file, and a video began playing on her screen. The image quality was old and grainy, but they could clearly see what was happening. Huge Valdorian warships surrounded a blue and green planet. The planet was Earth. "No," June whispered, staring at the screen. "That's my home." The video showed the Valdorian ships firing their weapons. Bright beams of energy struck the planet's surface. Cities that had stood for centuries disappeared in flashes of light. Forests burned. Oceans boiled. Nari opened more files. Video after video showed the same terrible destruction. Floating cities fell from the sky. Quote, crystal towers shattered. Millions of people ran for their lives as their world died around them. "Look at this report," Hannah said, reading from another file. She had found written documents that explained what they were seeing. "It's called Genetic Cleansing Protocol. It says human advancement poses an existential threat to Valdorian supremacy. They recommend total elimination and historical revision." Dr. Minho felt sick as he read more reports. They planned everything. The attack, the cover-up, the false history they would teach. They even decided what lies to tell about human civilization. June sat on the floor, tears running down his face as he watched videos of evacuation ships trying to escape. Earth. Most of the ships were destroyed before they could reach safety. Families who might have survived were killed in space, far from their burning home. 30 billion people, June said in a broken voice. "My wife was a teacher. My children were just learning to walk. They all died because we were too smart, too advanced, because we threatened the Valdorians' power." Ari found more files that showed what happened after the attack. The Valdorians had stolen human technology and claimed it as their own. Quantum, processors, medical devices, energy systems, all human inventions that became the foundation of Valdorian power. "They rewrote everything," she said, reading through historical documents. "They created fake archaeological evidence, paid historians to write false reports. They built their entire galactic empire on lies and stolen technology." Bomi discovered the most important file of all. It contained blueprints for a communication system that could send messages instantly across any distance. The technology was completely human in design, far beyond anything the Valdorians had created themselves. "This is why they killed us," June said, looking at the blueprints. "With this technology, we could have connected every world in the galaxy instantly. We could have shared knowledge and resources freely. The Valdorians would have lost their control over galactic trade and communication." Dr. Minho stared at the evidence spread across their screens. Hundreds of files, thousands of videos, detailed reports of genocide and theft. They built their empire on mass murder. Everything we've been taught about galactic history is a lie. Suddenly, bright lights flooded the archive room. Security alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed on every wall. Counselor Kong's voice echoed from speakers. Throughout the building, "Attention all security teams. Seal all exits immediately. The research team in the lower archives is to be considered armed and dangerous. They are guilty of treason against the Galactic Council. Terminate them on sight." Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridors above them. Security forces were coming. "We need to get this information out," Nari said quickly, copying files to portable storage devices. "The galaxy needs to know the truth. They'll kill us before we can tell anyone," Hannah said, looking toward the ceiling as the footsteps got louder. June stood up, wiping the tears from his face. His expression had changed from sadness to determination. "Then we make sure our deaths mean something. We broadcast the truth to everyone, everywhere, all at once." The footsteps stopped directly above them. Someone was cutting through the floor. With energy tools, sparks began falling through the ceiling. "How?" Dr. Minho asked desperately. June smiled grimly. "With human technology, the same technology they killed my people to steal." The sound of cutting tools grew louder as sparks fell through the ceiling of the archive room. Hannah worked frantically at a makeshift device she had built from pieces of June's ship. Her hands moved quickly, connecting wires and adjusting settings. "Much longer?" Dr. Minho asked, watching the ceiling as security forces cut through the metal above them. "Almost ready," Hannah replied, sweat dripping down her face. But I need 30 seconds to charge the quantum transmitter. Nari was still copying files to storage devices, trying to save as much evidence as possible. There's so much information here. Hundreds of years of lies and cover-ups. A section of the ceiling crashed to the floor. Armed security officers began dropping into the room, their weapons pointed at the research team. "Stop what you're doing," shouted the team leader. "Move away from the computers." June stepped forward, placing himself between the soldiers and Hannah's device. "You're too late. The truth is already spreading." At that moment, Hannah pressed the final button. The quantum transmitter came to life with a bright blue glow. Energy flowed through the device as it connected to every communication network in the galaxy. "Broadcasting now," Hannah announced. June moved closer to the transmitter's microphone. Despite the weapons pointed at him, his voice was calm and clear. "I am the last human. My name is June, and I survived to tell you the truth." The security team leader raised his weapon, but it was already too late. The transmission was spreading faster than light itself, reaching every world in the galaxy simultaneously. 300 years ago, my people were not destroyed by war. June continued. "We were murdered. The Valdorians killed 30 billion humans and stole our technology. They built their empire on genocide and lies." As he spoke, Nari's computer automatically uploaded thousands of files to the Galactic Network. Videos of the attack on Earth, documents proving the cover-up, evidence of stolen human technology. 3 centuries of carefully hidden truth poured into public networks faster than anyone could stop it. On the planet Altair, scientists stared at their computers in shock. The primitive metalworking techniques their ancestors had supposedly developed were identical to human designs that were 500 years old. On Centauri Prime, historians discovered that their greatest cultural achievements had been copied from human art and philosophy. Works they had been taught were Valdorian gifts to their people. On 1,000 worlds, people began to understand that their own histories had been changed and manipulated. The security forces in the archive room opened fire. June fell to the ground, blood spreading across the floor. Dr. Minho and Bomi were hit as they tried to protect the transmitter. But the device kept broadcasting. "You cannot stop the truth," June said weakly, his voice still carrying across the galaxy. "It spreads like light through darkness." Suddenly, a new hologram appeared in the archive room. It was Prime Valdor himself, the supreme leader of the Valdorian Empire. His crystalline face was twisted with rage. "You would destroy galactic order for one insignificant species?" Prime Valdor demanded. June struggled to sit up, blood running from his wounds. "Insignificant? We dreamed of touching the stars not to conquer them, but to understand them. We created beauty not for power, but for joy. Your people were weak." Prime Valdor snarled, "They deserve to die." "We were peaceful," June replied. "We shared our knowledge freely, wanted to help other species grow and learn. That's why you feared us. That's why you killed us." Across the galaxy, the broadcast was having an immediate effect. On dozens of worlds, angry crowds surrounded Valdorian government buildings. Species that had been told they were primitive began to understand their true heritage. The Valdorian communication networks were flooded with demands for answers. Why had they lied about human history? What other lies had they told? Any other species had they cheated and manipulated? The dream didn't die with my people, June continued, his voice growing weaker. "It lives in every species you've oppressed. It lives in everyone who chooses knowledge over ignorance, peace over war, truth over lies." Reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Valdorian facilities on dozens of worlds were being attacked by local populations. The Galactic Council building was surrounded by protesters demanding the truth. It's about their own histories. Prime Valdor's hologram flickered with interference as his communication networks began failing. "This changes nothing. We still control the military, still control trade." But even as he spoke, Valdorian military commanders on distant worlds were receiving reports of rebellion. Their own soldiers, many from species that had just learned the truth about their heritage, were refusing orders. June closed his eyes, feeling his strength leaving him. "Truth survives longer than lies," he whispered. "Hope survives longer than hatred." The quantum transmitter continued broadcasting for 3 more hours before Valdorian forces finally destroyed it. But by then, the information had spread too, far to stop. Every major news network in the galaxy was reporting the story. Scientists were analyzing the evidence. Historians were rewriting textbooks. June died 3 days later in a hospital bed, his body finally giving in to the injuries from the attack, but his final words were recorded and broadcast to every world. Remember us not as victims, but as proof that better worlds are possible. Within a week, the Valdorian Empire had collapsed. The Galactic Council dissolved as member species declared their independence. Wars began on some worlds, but on others, people worked together to build something new. The galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in 3 centuries, it would be built on truth instead of lies.